promising news in the quest for a coronavirus vaccine. In the midst of a brutal wave of the COVID-19 pandemic sweeping much of the world, there is encouraging news on another vaccine. The drug maker AstraZeneca and researchers at Oxford University say they have developed one that was on average 70% effective in human trials. Among the volunteers, there are no reports of hospitalizations or severe cases of COVID-19. Well, joining us now, one of the people who helped develop this vaccine, Professor Adrian Hill of the Jenner Institute at Oxford University. And it is great to have you on, sir. This being applauded today by Boris Johnson, the Prime Minister, saying, and I quote, "Incredibly exciting news on the Oxford vaccine. It's proved effective in trials, still further safety checks ahead, but these are fantastic results." So, congratulations, sir. Help us understand the data, if you will. On the one hand, the vaccine has 90% efficacy when given as a half dose, followed by a full dose at least a month apart. On the other, when given as 2 full doses, we've got some 62% efficacy. I'm no good at these things, so help us out. What are you telling us today?
We're telling you that we tested 2 different immunization regimens. One, the standard regime, where you give the same dose twice, and the other, a fairly new type of regime where you increase the dose. So we started with half a dose, and then the second immunization was with the full dose. And intriguingly, that gave very high efficacy of 90%. That was highly statistically significant. So this looks like a real result for high efficacy. And we don't fully understand that, but there are several ideas around as to how it might work, and we're exploring those. But
so how long will it take you to understand specifically what is going on here?
Oh, probably weeks and months to do that. We are, of course, looking at that in further trials. As you know, there's a very large trial running in the US right now. About 10,000 people have been recruited already. The numbers are going to be between 30 and 40,000 by the time we have finished. So we may well have the opportunity to reassess this in the US trial. And of course, I'm afraid the cases in the UK are so frequent now that by the time we finish the UK and Brazilian studies at the end of the year, we'll probably have close to 200 cases in the trial as a whole. So we'll be able to look at this on even larger numbers.
Promises on distribution, of course, coming thick and fast at this point. Is there any way you can ensure that the one with 90% efficacy is the one that gets distributed?
Yeah, well, it's the same vaccine to be distributed, and the vaccines usually come in 10-dose vials. So it's really the choice of the end user whether you give the one regime or the other, because it's very easy to give half a dose. And we've discussed this with the Department of Health in the UK. They are very confident that's going to be straightforward. So that's not a logistic challenge, and of course it's dose sparing. So you may be aware that AstraZeneca have taken on contracts to manufacture as many as 3 billion doses of this vaccine over the next 12 months, which would be absolutely extraordinary and fantastic. But if you could use the half-dose regime, that 3 billion would suddenly become 4.5 billion doses available. So there are a couple of reasons why you might want to use this low-dose, high-dose regime.
Take us through the next steps then, if you will. I mean, this is clearly extremely exciting. You have said that the vaccine will start getting rolled out from December. Is that a timeline that is doable at this point? And how much vaccine are you planning to administer?
Yeah, well, I'll come to that, but let me just take you through the next steps, which are actually looking more at the data that we analyzed yesterday. And there are a couple of really interesting things there. You mentioned one of them. There were no cases of severe disease in the vaccinees in the whole trial. There certainly were in the controls. We need to firm up that data and publish it. We'll do that in the next few days. And even more excitingly, an endpoint that we don't think any other group has looked at, which is to ask the question, does the vaccine protect against being infectious? In other words, most people who are infectious are actually asymptomatic in many countries. And to measure asymptomatic COVID, you need to swab people. And we did that in literally thousands of people every week for months and months and months. So we have the result of whether the vaccine protects you against asymptomatic COVID infection, which, of course, as you know, is transmissible. So the initial data on that we're going to look at more carefully, but again, it looks like we're getting significant useful efficacy against asymptomatic carriage of this virus. And in a public health sense, that would be very important because the vaccine would quell the epidemic much more quickly if it blocks transmission as well as blocking disease.